Have you ever looked at the world and thought, this isn't right? You see injustice rewarded, evil unchecked, and prayers that seem to go unanswered. You do what's right, yet nothing changes. And quietly, you wonder if God sees any of it. Habakkuk is one of the most honest conversations in the Bible. It's not a sermon to the people. It's a dialogue between a frustrated prophet and God himself. Habakkuk dares to ask the questions many of us are afraid to voice, and what God reveals reshapes how faith works when life does not make sense. In this video, we'll explore Habakkuk's bold questions, God's surprising answers, and how faith survives when certainty disappears. Overview. The book of Habakkuk is short, just 3 chapters, but its message is profound. Unlike most prophetic books, Habakkuk does not begin with God speaking to the people. Instead, it begins with the prophet speaking to God. Habakkuk looks at the moral collapse of Judah and cries out in frustration, violence, injustice, and corruption surround him, and God seems silent. How long, Lord, must I call for help, but you do not listen? Habakkuk 1 verse 2. Habakkuk is not rebuked for questioning God. Instead, God responds. But the answer is unexpected and unsettling. God reveals that he is raising up the Babylonians, a violent and wicked empire, to judge Judah. This only deepens Habakkuk's struggle. How can a holy God use a nation more corrupt than Judah to bring justice? The book unfolds as a conversation. Habakkuk questions, God answers, Habakkuk wrestles, and finally, Habakkuk arrives at faith. The climax of the book is not a solution to the problem of evil, but a transformation of the prophet's perspective. Habakkuk learns that faith is not built on understanding outcomes, but on trusting God's character. Historical and social setting. Habakkuk likely lived during the late 7th century BCE, just before the Babylonian invasion of Judah. This was a time of political instability, moral decay, and looming foreign threat. Assyria was fading, Babylon was rising, and Judah stood vulnerable in between. Internally, Judah was marked by injustice. The law was ignored, the powerful oppressed the weak, and violence filled the land. Habakkuk's complaints reflect a society where righteousness seemed pointless and evil prevailed without consequence. This setting explains the prophet's deep anguish. He believed in God's justice, yet everything around him contradicted it. Habakkuk stands at the tension point between faith and reality, a place many people recognize all too well. Key themes in Habakkuk. 1. Honest questions are not faithlessness. Habakkuk teaches that questioning God is not rebellion when it comes from a desire for justice and truth. Faith begins with honesty. 2. God is always at work, even when hidden. God tells Habakkuk, I am doing a work in your days that you would not believe. Habakkuk 1 verse 5. Silence does not mean absence. 3. God's ways exceed human understanding. Habakkuk cannot understand why God would use Babylon. This reveals the limits of human perspective when judging divine plans. 4. The danger of pride and power. Babylon's arrogance is condemned. Power built on pride ultimately collapses. Habakkuk 2 verses 4 to 5. 5. The righteous live by faith. One of the most influential verses in Scripture appears here, the righteous shall live by faith. Habakkuk 2 verse 4. Faith becomes the foundation of survival. 6. God's justice is certain, even if delayed. Habakkuk 2 pronounces woes against injustice, reminding readers that evil may flourish temporarily, but judgment is inevitable. 7. Worship in the midst of fear. Chapter 3 shifts into a prayer and hymn. Habakkuk chooses worship despite uncertainty. 8. Joy rooted in God, not circumstances. Habakkuk ends with one of the strongest declarations of faith in Scripture, rejoicing even when everything is stripped away. Key verses in Habakkuk. Habakkuk 1 verse 2, How long, Lord, must I call for help, but you do not listen? This captures the raw honesty of the book. Habakkuk 1 verse 5, I am doing a work in your days that you would not believe. A reminder that God's activity often unfolds beyond human awareness. Habakkuk 2 verse 1, I will stand at my watch. Habakkuk models patient waiting for God's response. Habakkuk 2 verse 4, the righteous shall live by faith. The theological heart of the book. Habakkuk 2 verse 14, the earth will be filled with the knowledge of the glory of the Lord. Hope beyond judgment. Habakkuk 3 verse 2, renew your deeds in our time. A prayer for God's mercy and action. Habakkuk 3 verses 17 to 18, though the fig tree does not bud, yet I will rejoice in the Lord. Faith that transcends circumstances. Habakkuk 3 verse 19, the sovereign Lord is my strength. The book ends with trust, not answers. Relevance Today. Habakkuk feels incredibly modern. Many people today wrestle with unanswered prayers, injustice, violence, and the feeling that wrong is winning. Like Habakkuk, we believe God is just, yet we struggle to reconcile that belief with what we see. This book teaches that faith is not pretending everything is fine. It is choosing trust when clarity is absent. Habakkuk does not get an explanation that satisfies his logic, but he receives something deeper, assurance that God is sovereign, faithful, and present. In a world shaped by uncertainty, Habakkuk reminds us that faith does not require control. It requires trust. Closing thought. Habakkuk ends where it began, not with changed circumstances, but with a changed heart. The prophet who started in confusion ends in worship. So if you are waiting, questioning, or struggling to understand what God is doing in your life, Habakkuk offers this quiet truth: faith is not about seeing the whole picture. It is about trusting the one who does. And sometimes, that trust is the miracle itself.